Yeah, and I'm proud and honored to welcome Jeff Kirshner, who happens to be a good friend of mine, who I've watched his kids grow up and all of that good stuff. And Jeff is on a quest to make the world a better place. And I'm going to let him tell you about that and his baby called Litterati. Jeff?
Hear me okay? So 9 months ago, I was walking through the Oakland Hills with these two ridiculous kids, and my daughter noticed that somebody had put one of those into a creek. And she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, that doesn't go there." And I said, "You're right, sweetie, that doesn't go there." And for me, that was the eye-opening moment, that here I am living in the Bay Area, this place known for being ecologically responsible, and yet everywhere you look, there's trash. And when she said that to me, it reminded me of when I used to go to summer camp. I'd go away for 2 months. And the morning of visiting day, right before they'd let our parents come barreling through the gates, our camp director would say, "All right, everybody, I want you to all go out and pick up 5 pieces of trash." So suddenly you had 200 kids, each picking up 5 pieces, and within a few moments you had a much cleaner camp. So I thought, well, why couldn't I apply that exact same crowd-sourced cleaning behavior to the entire planet? So I started Litterati. The vision is a litter-free planet. I'll come back to that. Let me show you how it works. You find a piece of litter, you shoot it with Instagram, you tag it Litterati, you throw out or recycle the litter. It's a pretty simple process. So I started walking around doing this. This was the first shot I ever took. My daughter likes to refer to that as butt crack. And as I kept doing this, I found out 2 things. One, it was kind of fun. I'm not a photographer, but Instagram makes us all great photographers. And 2, suddenly I had this record of the impact that I was having on the earth. It was pretty cool. So I started telling other people, and they started participating in it. A buddy of mine named Kevin Flores shot this down on the Santa Cruz boardwalk. And so when more people participated, I built something at Litterati.org called the Digital Landfill, which was nothing more than a photo gallery of all the the Litterati tagged photos on Instagram. And then this picture came over. And when I saw that, I thought, well, maybe this has some legs. And there were some really beautiful photographs. And then I realized there was something way more powerful than the visuals, and it was all the data. So from Instagram alone, I can tell you who, what, where, and when. I know who took an image of what, I know where because they're geotagged, and I know when because they're timestamped. So the first thing I did was I laid a bunch of photos over a Google map. And as I started getting closer and closer to the data, I started seeing certain trends emerge. Lake Merritt. This is where the first light bulb went off, which was, I noticed that about 90% of the litter was concentrating in the north. Now, I didn't know if that was because there were more picnic tables there, there's more foot traffic in the area, or maybe the wind blows in that direction. But at the very least, I thought, well, maybe Litterati could open up a conversation with the city of Oakland and say, here's what the data shows. Maybe we could just put some more trash cans and recycling units there, and then we can determine whether or not that made a positive impact. On a side note, each one of those represents one piece. My children go to school right in the center. And I presented this to the school and they said, wow, that's horrible. And I said, actually, it's way worse because this just represents what my wife, myself, and a few friends have picked up in the last couple of weeks. There are tens of thousands of other pieces out there. And what I noticed about this is that if I were to say to you all, there's a lot of litter outside Potrero, you'd say, yeah, I know. But if I show it to you in this map, in this setting, it changes the context of the conversation. It adds a tangibility and a contextuality to it. Then something really interesting started happening. People started tagging what they were picking up. So now on the back end, I started building what I call the Litterati Index, which is nothing more than a stacked rank listing of the most commonly found brands and product types. And this is when the second light bulb went off, which was, what if Litterati could open up a conversation with, say, Starbucks? And say, listen, Starbucks, we're not suggesting that you're directly responsible for littering the earth, but your products are making their way to our lakes and our sidewalks, so let's find a way to work together, because it's obviously not good for the planet, and it's not good for your brand from a marketing perspective that when I'm walking with my 2 kids in the Oakland woods, we come across your trampled logo in the mud. So maybe Starbucks would start sourcing 100% compostable material, or edible cups, an idea that's not that far-fetched. Or maybe they would use the Litterati platform as a way to go from being the the villain into the hero. Use it as a PR mechanism and say, okay, if anybody picks up 5 items or 10 items, we're going to give you a free cup of coffee, but we'll give it to you in a reusable mug. So now they're pushing social responsibility. They're helping clean the earth. You and I are getting a free mug. We're getting a free cup of coffee. They're getting us back into the store where there's a good chance we're going to buy a muffin or a sandwich. It's a win for us, a win for them, and a win for the planet. Remember I said this was the vision? Let me tell you how I'm proposing we get there. A simultaneous bottom-up, top-down approach. The bottom-up is find compelling ways for each of us to play our own part, whether it's you pick up one thing a day or one thing a year. And whether that's done through the intrinsic reward you feel for playing your part, or through an extrinsic motivation, incentive, or other game mechanic. Then use that data, the who, what, where, and when, to work top down with municipalities to see if we could be more strategic about the placement of trash cans or recycling bins, or if we could work with brands to come up with innovative ways to prevent the litter from ever ending up on the ground in the first place. And maybe through that simultaneous move, we can eventually reach a litter-free world. Here's what this movement has accomplished to date, and it's nothing, I recognize that, but you know what? It's a start. I don't want to get here. But the reality is we're not that far from there. So this is a picture of the Sitmaran River in Indonesia. Some people refer to this as the river of plastic. And this is the beautiful but haunting work of Chris Jordan. And this is a little thing called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Anybody heard of it? If you haven't, it's a plastic flotilla twice the size of Texas floating in the Pacific that nobody really knows what to do about. I personally have a hard time getting my mind wrapped around that. And when you look at images like this, the problem can seem almost insurmountable. And in many ways, it might be. So the only way I know how to attack it is one piece at a time. And that's how we're starting Litterati. So I'm here to ask you for a little bit of help. Play your part and join the Litterati. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Okay, so this part of the night, part of the session is that you get to ask questions. So they get 5 minutes and we get 5 minutes. So raise your hands high if you have a question for Jeff. There are 300 people here. There's not one question? Yes, sir.
Let me make sure I understand your question correctly. Are you asking what's our analytics capability to understand the number of unique people taking photographs versus the number of unique types of litter that are coming across?
Trash as opposed to the foot traffic by those pieces of trash. So I work with image processing and stuff like that. It's impossible really to predictably say what this unique piece of trash is when you start to stylize the picture. So just curious what you guys are thinking about doing as far as squeezing it down to unique pieces of trash as opposed to unique pictures of the same piece of trash. I'm wording that poorly, but.
That's okay. I'm not 100% I understand your question, but I'll tell you what we're doing. So people are tagging the images themselves. Right? So there's a little bit of an honor system going on here. Granted, we're in early days, and there's probably 400 or 500 people that are actively doing this. Many of them I know. So I'm hoping they're not trying to game the system. But eventually, we'll probably get to a place where we will have to integrate image recognition and other ways of understanding what litter we're finding. And if you want to talk afterwards in more detail, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Just to clarify the last question, so it sounds like the responsibility, the onus is on the finder for that piece of litter, right?
In terms of tagging it?
Tagging it and disposing of it.
Definitely
properly.
In terms of disposing it.
So the likelihood that someone else would tag it and there would be redundancy would be nil.
Correct.
Okay.
So what will happen as we scale is that there are plenty of people that just tag Litterati, right? That's all you have to do. But many people are either adding an artistic caption or they're adding, if you pick up a piece of Trident, some people are saying pound Trident, pound chewing gum, pound Litterati. All we're doing is extracting any Litterati hashtag out of the Instagram database, and then we're running the data against that. Eventually, we may have to have either a team of people that are tagging those pictures that aren't tagged or figure out another solution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have a friend who hikes in parks regularly and regularly cleans them up completely. And I'll tell her about this and have her take pictures and send it to you, but I think she doesn't pick up one piece, she picks up 100 pieces every time. And she's gotten the park rangers to come and help her and other passersby to come and help her, and it's like she's really cleaning things up. So I wonder, do you have on your site some way to acknowledge that so that it encourages other people to do the same thing?
So first of all, thank you for helping to spread the word. I appreciate that. There's nothing currently on the site that will propel that concept, but we need to get there. And you bring up a really interesting point and something that I've been learning as I go along, which is there's a lot of people already doing this. There's a lot of neighborhoods that have organized cleanups. And one of the values I think Litterati brings, and look, it's not the end-all solution, but one of the values is that suddenly there's a record. Suddenly there's some intelligence behind the litter. Whereas people before were picking up one thing or picking up an entire garbage bag, it just then gets thrown away or recycled. It's like if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there to hear it, did it ever fall? Well, there's something similar. If you just pick up a Starbucks cup on the ground and then throw it away, but there was no incentive, no reward, no recognition, it seems like that we could extend the experience. Imagine if you could have some sort of weekly or monthly digest that said, hey, thanks, here's the impact you've personally had on the earth this month. Here are the things you've picked up. Here's how much you've picked up. Here's the weight of what you've picked up. Here's the carbon offset, although that doesn't translate properly, but you get the idea, right? Instead of just picking something up and throwing it away. Imagine if you could be motivated by a reward or incentivized by some sort of digital badge or something like that. These are all ideas we need to explore.
Jeff, we're way out of time, but I know everybody's wondering, do you have a revenue model behind this? Or
I thought you might ask. So obviously none of these become viable without a critical mass of people, but these are some of the ideas I'm exploring. And one is the data itself. So is the data valuable to a city? Would they want to know where litter is emerging around their areas? Would brands want to know what the life cycle of their products are and where that's ending? Or would companies like Waste Management or Recology want to know? The second is the platform itself. Could we be connective tissue between brands and consumers and actually bring them closer together while cleaning the earth at the same time? The third is obviously sponsorship and advertising, but we got a long way to go before we ever get there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.